Sloppiness, sloppiness, sloppiness. That's what federal judges are saying to the Trump DOJ as this mass exodus of DOJ attorneys and staff has absolutely crippled the functioning of the Department of Justice, where they're getting the most basic facts wrong about people who they are detaining and then depriving them of access to their belongings, access to lawyers, access to the Constitution. And you have a lot of individuals, even people who, are here lawfully and others, who are filing these petitions for habeas corpus and saying, look, we need to be released. This detention's unlawful. People are being harbored in these detention centers. The DOJ doesn't have the lawyers who can even respond after individuals are detained in certain cases. So we're seeing lots of just missing the deadlines and ignoring the petitions. And the judges are saying, well, given that this is, there's no opposition, I guess we're, no matter what, going to release an individual. Just think about that. ICE and Border Patrol, Gestapo taking people, throwing them in detention centers, and then the DOJ not even filing motions to try to justify it after the individual is detained. Find a lawyer and file these motions. Then in other cases, the DOJ is just getting basic facts wrong about the individuals they're detaining and basically saying things about them. And the judge is like, if you just looked at the basic facts of this case, it would turn out that the petitioner who you claim engaged in all of this unlawful conduct was 4 years old at the time you claim they were engaged in the unlawful conduct. And the judges are saying, look, the sloppiness for which you are engaging in this conduct further shows the bad faith of this of these detentions that you're engaged in. So you look at this ruling in West Virginia by Judge Berger, for example, the word sloppiness comes in over and over again. The Trump regime claimed that a man detained by ICE had a criminal conviction for marijuana possession in 2009, and that's why they detained him. But then the judge had to point out that man was 4 years old at the time. Here's the judge's ruling. It talks about how this court's ruling in prior cases were consistent with the opinions of 3 other judges in this district who have made similar rulings about people being unlawfully detained by Donald Trump's Gestapo. The respondent did attach a document to the response purporting to show a minor conviction for marijuana possession in 2009. And that's why they're saying they detained the individual. But the petitioner was 4 years old in 2009, and the respondent indicated that the document was supplied by ICE and likely presumed to relate to the petitioner because the individual in those records had the same name, despite the differences in birth date, birthplace, parents' names, and immigration status. This sloppiness further validates the court's concerns about the procedures utilized by respondents, the government, depriving people present in the United States of their liberty. Profound and powerful words. Or then you go to Judge Tostrad, who made this ruling about individuals that the Trump regime was detaining. They found the Trump regime in civil contempt for transferring an ICE detainee to Texas in violation of his order, and then releasing him without his belongings in El Paso. He ordered the administration to refund the $568 it cost for the man to get a plane ticket back home. And then after a judge ordered the release of a man from ICE custody, his wife said the agents held on to their car keys 75 miles from home. So then another judge, Judge McConnell, ordered the return of their property, calling the agency's actions unlawful and inappropriate. You could look at what's going on in the Central District of California's Kyle Cheney, who does a great job reporting on this, said, here's a phenomenon I've seen a lot lately. ICE detains somebody, right? Someone's being thrown in one of these detention centers, one of these camps. The person sues, says their detention is illegal. The Department of Justice says, we have no counter argument. And then the judge orders the release. And so here you have Judge Olgan in California say, at this time, respondents do not have an opposition to the arguments that are being presented. So they detain someone and then don't even argue it, don't even file the paperwork after throwing somebody inside of a detention center. So with all of this going on, you have all these thousands of DOJ employees, lawyers, being fired. Pam Bondi was asked today questions about the DOJ. She went on state regime media, which calls itself Fox. And again, she keeps on talking about the Dow and the economy and things like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be the attorney general. You're supposed to be addressing things like this. Here, let's play this clip.
These are the kinds of things they want to say he's racist. He really just loves Americans and is trying to protect families.
Ainsley, as you know, he loves America. President Trump has made America safe again, and that's what he's doing. And in turn, that makes Americans feel safe to go to work, to have jobs, to be able to go to church, to be able to function in our country and be safe. And that's what's driving our economy. Donald Trump making America safe. And that's why our economy is at a record high.
All right, let's bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds podcast, and Talking Feds Substack. I mean, Harry, this is serious business right here. You have the Attorney General right there again, I don't know, acting as Caroline Leavitt, basically, while the individuals who are being detained, human beings being thrown in these camps, are presenting very basic arguments to these courts. I mean, I gave 3 examples, Harry, but there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of examples of the what I just showed right there. And these are people's lives. These are human beings whose lives are being destroyed. What do you make of it all, Harry?
100%. And Ben, it is more serious even, I think, than you've portrayed it, because judges, it's enough to say sloppiness. But come on, when this happens again and again and again, I think we see a pattern, and we don't have to look hard to see the pattern. This is the very issue that ICE is choosing to fight tooth and nail. This is, the system sucks. My job sucks. The chief judge in Minnesota saying you violated more orders last month than most agencies have in an entire lifetime. It's all their effort to be able to try to just collar someone, stick them in these detention centers, which I'll get back to in a moment, and then they have control. But that flies in the face of what the Supreme Court has said. You have to give them some rights, bring a habeas corpus motion. Some do. I think some are just rotting away in there, or are just spirited away to other countries. But it's just too much when you see 4, 5, 200 people. Okay, we'll release you. Let go 800 miles away with no identification. How do you do that? Oops, by mistake. That guy who had his plane ticket had to be reimbursed. They also just left him on the streets with no identification. The other civil contempt, same thing. Oops, we can't find his identification until they were actually found to be in civil contempt. Some combination of ICE's scofflaw attitude and their desire to be able to just get people, put them away, and then they have leverage. Then they are in control. And the detention centers they are being put away in, so far, we haven't had too much of a light shown on them, but the extent we have is completely horrifying. You have people for days and days, when it's supposed to be hours, forced to sleep near overflowing toilets, noise, lights on all the time, conditions that plainly would violate the Constitution if they were in any state prison. But ICE just wants to, take people and put them in there and be done with them. So I think, and I'm sure there's also this bureaucratic overload, and the attorneys who mainly have just been, completely, can you come? You're a warm body, represent the United States, because everyone has quit. A lot of problems of sloppiness, a lot of problems of coordination. But I think we have a bigger underlying problem that ICE just doesn't want to give rights to people whom an arrest to challenge their arrest. And as you say, many of them have been found to be either citizens or the arrest themselves completely unlawful. Pretty good example, right? How do you ever, we don't know what the name is, but I'll bet it's pretty common, put someone forward and say, oh, it's a marijuana conviction, Your Honor, in 2009 when the guy was 4 years old. This is sort of more than sloppiness. This is dereliction. And, in particular, they just get so often we've seen this pattern. You have a protester, they're arrested and charged with some kind of obstruction crime. And then in every single case, I'm talking every single case, Kyle Cheney has documented this in Chicago and elsewhere, they're either released or nothing comes of it. It's just the sort of standard operating procedure for ICE. So sloppiness, you bet. But I think it's more than that. Especially you have these serial instances of just letting people go on the streets with no money, no identification papers. That is ICE, I think, thumbing its nose at court orders however it can.
I think, and we've seen some of these lawyers now who are being held in contempt, these DOJ lawyers whose careers are harmed now. I mean, when you Google these people, you see that they've been held in contempt and they then though blame the circumstance. I tried, I'm doing my best. Yeah. There's not enough lawyers. There's not enough resources. So I guess, do you think, Harry, it's a combination of the cruelty and the intentionality, and now these people, these lawyers who are, we talked about in last week, some of these JAG lawyers now, or who are not AUSAs, they're being moved here, and they're kind of being put through the contempt meat grinder, if you will, and they're now almost pawns in this. Are they being set up almost by the Trump regime for failure? What do you make of that?
I do think that, Ben. I mean, I think, look, it's obviously combinations of things. And these guys, look at the example of the lawyer held in civil contempt has to have that scarlet letter for the rest of his professional career. That was because he tried to get from his client, ICE, the document papers that it's around here somewhere, the dog ate it, etc. I think they were making best efforts. We have a few lawyers, actually, this has been kind of new, coming forward and saying something that the Trump administration seemed incapable of saying before: we screwed up. But so absolutely, you're right. And certainly these new guys who've just been conscripted and are in there, they're not trying to violate the law. They're trying to somehow get by. But I also think there's a culture, and specifically this issue of ICE wanting very much to be able to just detain people with no second guessing. They fought this in the Fifth Circuit. You've talked about that case before. And that's part of the chaos, yes. But there's an attitude that I think has been basically sanctioned at the top. Stephen Miller, for example, that makes ICE, that makes the people who are doing it, giving it their best shot with no experience, making their life harder. It's not sloppiness top to bottom. But yes, of course, I think these new guys have been kicked in the rear, go on in there, and they have no idea what they're getting themselves in for.
Caveat emptor, buyer beware. You show up and this is what you get. JAG lawyers, immigration lawyers. We covered the story of that one lawyer who asked the judge to be held in contempt, to be detained because she'd rather be detained than work the job at the DOJ. A lot more we're going to cover on this one, but we're seeing the dominoes fall in this DOJ break apart. Everybody, make sure you hit subscribe here, but more importantly, subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. Hey, Harry, I know and Harry Litman's channel is called Talking Feds. I know you got a big event coming up with Governor Shapiro. Give us a quick plug for that.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. So we've got this Talking San Diego series where people come, political officials or authors from around the country, and Governor Josh Shapiro, who everybody wants to hear from, is coming to San Diego Saturday, March 14th I'll be talking to him about his new book, and not just his new book. He really has been one of the prominent governors who has been pushing back against Trump, but he's got his own style of governing. He has high bipartisan approval in Pennsylvania. So it's going to be great. Tickets are going very, very fast. Still have some if anyone's in the area wants to come see him, but it's going to be a really terrific conversation. Thanks for mentioning it, Ben.
Thanks everybody as well for watching, and make sure you subscribe to Talking Feds.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.